Hey guys, welcome back. We are in Unit 4 for Developmental Psychology. So we're going to talk about a 3-chapter unit today in this video. So physical, cognitive, and socio-emotional development in late adulthood. So we're moving into our older adults. And then we have 1 chapter left in Unit 4, which will be on death and dying. So for this chapter, we start with our learning outcomes. So we've got them there for 17, 18, and 19. But generally, we'll talk about the physiological, the cognitive, and then the social and emotional aspects of older adulthood. So a lot of people, if you have not yet reached older adulthood, we have these stereotypes of people who are 65 plus. And a lot of this is rooted in ageism. So this idea of prejudice against older people. Some of these stereotypes are things like not being technologically sound, or being grumpy all the time, or even kind of positive stereotypes like just sitting around baking cookies, that's all people who are 65 plus do is, bake the cookies. But really, this is not true. So people who are 65 plus are a very diverse group. We can't just apply these stereotypes to them. They do many amazing things. Many people who are older adults are very fit. So I don't know if you could do this pose here that this woman is doing, but I probably could not. So very fit. Many are quite active, happy. They don't report being despondent at all. And then we even have people who, are smoking at their 100th birthday there, have cigarettes and giant earplugs, who are sexually active. We have a lot of variety in our older adults. So it's not fair to paint them all with one big brush. We also see that walking on the earth today, there have never been as many older adults as there are now. So these population pyramids the demographers use really show that this part at the top where the oldest adults are, it's getting bigger and bigger. So we're getting more of a round shape up there. We're getting more and more older adults. So it's going to increase by 500% between 200, the year 2000 and the year 2050. So we're going to have this big increase in older adults. This is going to mean a lot for our society, though, that we really haven't planned much for. So it's going to mean a lot for our political power. So these older adults are going to be voting. They're going to have money, economic power. They're going to be buying things, part of the economy. Pension is a huge thing. So if you used to, most of us would die maybe before age 70 or so, and now we're living a little bit longer, 75, 85, and so this pension is stretching longer and longer. Healthcare and elder care. So all of these systems are really, really important for keeping the older adult healthy, happy, and alive. But really, we've done very little to prepare for this influx of older adults. So we know it's coming. We know we have an aging society, that we're going to have lots of older adults that are going to need care in many different ways, but we really haven't done much to prepare for these older adults. So speaking about kind of this lifespan, and how long we can expect to live, there are different methods of quantifying this. So longevity is the number of years a person can expect to live. So with this one, we are seeing more and more centenarians. I cannot speak today. So people who are older than 100, we're seeing more and more of those individuals. So the maximum life expectancy then, if we're using that as a variable, this means the oldest age to which any person could possibly live. That's the maximum. So about 125. The Wikipedia article there is frequently updated as to the world's oldest living people. Longevity is the average age. So on average, how long could you and I expect to live? So this will change, but this CDC's got some information there. About 81 is our life expectancy for females, 76 for males. And then useful life expectancy. So how long can we expect to live without having a lot of chronic disease or things that are weighing us down? So feeling free and able to move about our lives. So how long we actually live, there's a lot of factors that go into this. Heredity is huge. So if your grandparents live to 105, you're more likely to live, to 100 plus as well. The environment that people live in, social class. So really it just kind of boils down to that access to good quality healthcare. People who kind of are able and willing to really meet the person where they're at and help them to get that health care that's needed. It's a huge factor in our life expectancy. And then U.S. women, so we did see that women were living longer than men. This was at birth, we can expect women to live 5 years longer than men, but really once they hit 85, so if men have lived long enough to hit that 85, that gap really decreases. And this is a really complex kind of understanding of why this is the case between men and women. So people have posited many different factors like lifestyle, men being more likely to engage in risky behavior, smoking, drinking, genetics, disease susceptibility. It's probably a combination of all of these things rather than just one. So there's some good and bad news about aging. Some really, really good news is the third age. So this period of time between 65 and 84, we have a lot of good things happening. So we're able to support people's goals and help them live a happy life with our knowledge and our technological advances. People generally report being high in their well-being. They feel good. They feel pretty fit. They have strategies to help them master things. So if they have some loss in their memory, they have strategies that can help them bring things back. Where the real problem lies is this 85 plus. So we do not have as much good news for those who are 85 plus. This does not mean at all that this is a horrible age to be. I, for one, hope to live for a very, very long time so that people ask me how I got to live that long, and then I can make up weird stuff to tell them. Like I bathed in a bath full of pennies every day or something. I just want to tell them weird things. I ate nothing but kiwi fruit. I don't know. I'm still thinking about it. Got a lot of years left to think about it. But this 85 plus, this is our oldest old. With this, we don't have as many interventions to help them with these declines. They're having declines in cognition, learning, and we really have a high prevalence of dementia. Also, we can see a high prevalence of frail older adults in this group. So for some people, we have this view that anyone 65 plus is frail. So they have physical disabilities, cognitive or psych disorders, or they're really ill. Actually, this is the minority of older adults. So especially those like 65, 70-year-olds, most of them are not frail. Most of them are quite spry, very active, and able to do their ADLs and IADLs. If you have difficulty with activities of daily living or instrumental activities of daily living, then this leads to issues with where one should live and the kind of care that one will need. But for the most part, most older adults are able to perform their activities of daily living, like bathing and grooming and going to the toilet, as well as those instrumental activities, which require some cognition, some thought. So things like medication, telephone, transportation. These things require some thought behind them. Most of our older adults are doing well with these, so that is their functional health. If we're not able to do well, then that's going to determine, where we need to live. Most older adults, if you ask them, where do you want to live? Where do you want to age? They're going to say, I want to age in my house. So I want to age in place. I want to live where I'm at. I want to do so independently. However, there are other options. So if the person is not able to, make the modifications they need to continue to stay in their home, or they need a lot more help, then we can see people moving into assisted living facilities. So with these, we just have a little bit of help coming in and out, but they don't need round-the-clock care. Or things like nursing homes where people need constant medical care. So they need to be moved or changed or have bags replaced or whatever it is. So they need constant care. There are some emerging developments. So a lot of older adults say they do not wish to be placed in a nursing home. And so there's different ways to try to make this just an easier kind of transition for older adults or to help them. So there's a video in here of a preschool that's doubling as a nursing home, as well as this dementia village where individuals with dementia live, but they are pretty much free to walk around this village. But the village is actually a nursing home kind of set off from society. But they can do normal things. They can go to the grocery store, they can get their hair done. It's just all of those activities are within this care complex for individuals with dementia. So people have said it's almost like a Truman Show, like, all these people know that this person has dementia and they still help them out. But, really I think it can be a positive thing for those people. And there's a video there you can watch if you want to. So why do we age? Why can't we all just stay the same age? Just pause aging right at like 35 or something. So we can't do that, obviously, and we're not exactly sure why we age, which is interesting to me. There's multiple theories. And so one is a biological theory of aging, and this one we've got evolutionary theory. And really it just says, we have reproduced by this age, and so we're just not needed as much. So our benefits decline with age. So it's time for us to go. We've already reproduced. Get off the earth kind of thing. Another theory is the cellular clock theory. With this, it's an idea that cells can divide a maximum of 75 to 80 times. We've got these telomeres at the top of our chromosomes, and these protect our genetic data, and they fray and they become shorter with each division. And so eventually we just can't replicate our telomeres anymore, and so we die. There's also a theory of free radicals, and so with this, we're introducing things into our body like fried food and tobacco and air pollutants, and these will cause cellular damage. We can hopefully prevent some of this damage by antioxidants, so things like healthy fruit and vegetables, slow the process there, but, or even some people will do calorie restriction with high nutrition, so they'll try to maintain a little bit under their natural set point of body weight, but they'll eat really, really healthy food to try and, keep themselves healthy and to reduce free radical damage. There's a theory that it's due to the mitochondria, so the mitochondria decaying, and so our bodies are almost like programmed for cell death. And there's another theory as well that there's stress and is a hormonal stress response. So just this aging in that stress response lowers resistance to stress, to disease, and so then we're more likely to because of this hormones and stress, we're more likely to be susceptible to disease down the line. So you can see that really with presidents as they're elected in, like Abraham Lincoln is a huge one there. You can see 1860 to 65, that toll of all of that stress that people experience and what this does to their physical body. So really, though, if we say which one is right, which theory is right, they all seem to be a little bit right. We don't have one that we say like this is for sure it's definitely mitochondrial theory. Instead, we think that probably a lot of these theories have pieces that are correct. Some physical changes with age. So we have a lot of changes in the cardiorespiratory system. So hypertension, more likely to have things like COPD. We're also getting a lot more sensory changes as we age. So people have more diseases of the eyes and the ears, more difficulty with hearing. Smell can decline, which can be dangerous. If you can't smell things like gas leaks, can be dangerous. And then we can even detect touch less. So this can be a problem. Individuals with diabetes cannot realize that their feet are having huge issues, open wounds, kind of things. They can't really feel them as well, and just not being able to feel touch as well. So some of these declines do happen. Our brain volume can also decrease, but they're compensation as well. It's not all downhill. I feel sometimes when going through this chapter that it's just like doom and gloom. It's really not, though. There's a lot of good things about aging. But we do get wrinkles. We can lose our height, lose some muscle. Many people are sexually active well into their older adult years. Our probability, though, of getting certain diseases, is going to increase with age. So the most likely thing to lead to death of an older adult are things like cancer and cardiovascular disease. Exercise, though, is really, really important for these older adults. Exercise is amazing, increases longevity, helps prevent disease. And then terminal decline, if you're a researcher, you're measuring somebody, time point over the years, you can start to see this almost decline or a real decline in some of the cognitive abilities and physical abilities that often precede death. And so if you're measuring someone's like processing speed, cognition, every 3 months for 6 years, oftentimes when we're getting closer to that point of death, our processing speed is going down. We're not able to process as fast. We can see that across different functions of the body. So some of these processing or these aspects of cognition, so we're moving into cognition from the physical aspects. Psychomotor speed, so this is how quickly we react to things. Often is called reaction time, and pretty much across the board this will slow with age. So there is some individual variation. Some people have a very quick decline in psychomotor speed, others kind of maintain their speed for longer, but really we can lose that speed pretty quick. One activity to do for this is to stand at the top of a chair there, drop a ruler and try to catch it. So the person on the ground would try to catch that ruler as quickly as possible. Pretty difficult to do, but if we're older, we're often catching it more slowly. Our working memory can become an issue too with older adulthood. So you have that poorer working memory, poorer reaction time, takes us longer to focus our attention, more difficult to sometimes come up with ideas and things like that. So you got to give them a few minutes perhaps. A lot of older adults are really worried about losing their memory, but a real sign of a problem is when it starts to interfere with life. So for most of us, we are going to have some memory loss, but even younger adults have this happen all the time. You walk into a room, you don't remember why you're there. Very common. But if it really is interfering with life, then that's the issue. Like this comic, he's got his wife labeled there, then we're having issues with memory. Mental activity and exercise, really, really good for maintaining and maintaining one's cognition. And there's things we can do, strategies like this little medical kit down here that says morning, noon, evening, bed, so you help remember if you've taken your meds or not. There's a lot of strategies we can do. Wisdom, so it's rare to be really wise, and the interesting thing about wisdom research is it appears to be unrelated to age. So it's not as if we all hit 65 and are suddenly super wise. In fact, it's more of things like our personal condition, like our mental ability, our expertise, and our life conditions, the things we've experienced that are more likely to make us wise. So no guarantee that older is wiser. Mental health, typically with depression, we're not seeing as much depression with older adults, generally decreases across the lifespan, but we really can see depression in older adults, loneliness, isolation, things like that. We want to make sure we're separating out the feeling of being depressed versus the physical, because in a younger adult, you might have physical aspects of being depressed, like you just feel tired and your body's fatigued. That might be normal for an older adult. So you have to really separate those out. Anxiety is relatively common in our older adults, so anxiety about things they can't change, dread and worry. We really need better mental health care for older adults, people who understand older adult populations and want to work specifically with them and help them with their mental health. It's sorely needed. So a form of dementia is Alzheimer's disease. We've got some aspects here that we can see. Loss of memory is a big one, but even things like mood changing, loss of reasoning, being disoriented to time and space. We've got some videos down there for individuals with Alzheimer's disease, but this is a really something that is more likely. The forms of dementia are more likely as we age, especially once we get to that 85 plus category. Some brain changes that occur with that, we've got neuritic plaques. So with this, you can see the picture there of a plaque. So we've got a damaged neuron, and it's wrapping around the core of that neuron. And then the tangles, so we're getting our brain axons twisted. Those are neurofibrillary tangles. So definitely some changes there. Women are more likely to have Alzheimer's disease, and this is because they often live longer lives. So actually to diagnose Alzheimer's, we need to see those plaques and tangles. So this has to occur after death. So autopsies are the definitive diagnosis for Alzheimer's, but we can make good guesses as to believe the person has Alzheimer's through things like neurological testing, asking family members. The causes of Alzheimer's disease are still being studied. So the early causes, so if someone has onset before age 60, we think that's a dominant inheritance. It's likely to be something that runs in their families. Later onset is more of a risk genes kind of thing. And unfortunately, there's no way to prevent it. So there are some ways to manage it and ways to help try to reduce our risk, like being active. Parkinson's is another disease that we'll see in older adulthood. So it's chronic and progressive disease, and you start seeing motor tremors. Eventually, this leads to dementia, which is why it's in our cognition section. The cause of this is not having enough dopamine in the right places in the midbrain. And so what they try to do then is increase dopamine levels and put in neurostimulators, so actually stimulating aspects of the brain to help these individuals. So with this chart, it kind of shows us some of the most important aspects of our, or what we think are most important during our lifespan, some of these big central pieces. We're moving into our social aspect of our older adulthood. I know this video is getting a little bit longer there, but it is 3 chapters. But we're moving along. We're in our social aspects now. So we're in with Erickson at this point. What Erickson said is at this point, so once we've hit 65 plus, we're in our older adulthood, we're going to review and reflect on our life events. Hopefully what we feel is integrity. So we judge that we've lived a meaningful and productive life. We don't have any regrets or very few regrets, and we feel good. Despair is a difficult thing. So this is getting to the end of the life and feeling like your whole life has really been meaningless, that you didn't do the things you wanted to do. You didn't reflect the way that you wanted to live in the society, live in the world. You weren't true to yourself. It's a horrible, horrible feeling. And so we don't want to be there. We want to have that good feeling of integrity. We want to have successful aging. And so with this model says this is well-being through health and social engagement. So we're minimizing our risk of disability, maintaining our health the best we can, and continuing our engagement with life. So one of these theories is activity and continuity, and so this really says we want to maintain that continuity, activity with life. So we want to stay active, we want to do the things we've always done. So if there's too little continuity, if we don't always do the things we've always done, then life is unpredictable. But if we only do those things, then life is boring. So we want to, keep some of our favorite hobbies like jigsaw puzzles and, going to the circus or something, whatever it is you like to do. But then also add in some interesting new things, hang out with your neighbors, maybe start playing Scrabble, just doing extra things as well. Subjective well-being, we can measure this throughout the lifespan. It's a positive feeling that results from evaluating one's life. And the interesting thing is that this really is increasing with age. So a lot of people, if you ask them, how does it feel to be 80 years old? People will be like, man, I don't know if I want to make it that long. I don't think they're happy. I think they're miserable. Actually, a lot of people say, I'm feeling pretty freaking good. This is good. I feel great. And so maybe their body hurts, maybe things aren't working the way they used to, but they still feel like life is worth living and it's a good thing. So that's a pretty positive thing. It seems like the lowest, we're really bottoming around that midlife. Spirituality is an important aspect for many older adults, so they feel like it helps them cope and meet their psychological needs, often through a couple steps of a process, so determining what they can change. So maybe I can change my health to manage my diabetes, working towards that change, they go exercise, they switch their diet, but then the things they can't change, they say, okay, I'll give this up to my spiritual power, I'm not going to deal with it anymore, I'm going to disconnect. So kind of having those steps can help older adults to feel much better. Also during this age is 65 plus, we're getting retirement. So with this, it's a transition, end of employment. For many people, this is new freedoms. So we feel really excited. It's a great new aspect of things to do, but there can be a loss too of occupational identity. For a lot of people, we are working longer and returning to the workforce after, so it's not this kind of cut and clear-cut aspect of just retiring right at 65. Many people are working longer and longer, so maybe 70, 75, and then returning back maybe part-time after they retire. Most are going to retire by choice, and so this is what we want, to be able to say, hey, I'm ready to retire. But there are other reasons too, health and finances. One big problem, though, is a lot of people have not saved up enough money for retirement. So recommended savings are about 11 times your final salary. So if you made $100,000 at your final salary, you want to save up 11 times $100,000 and is still expect to get Social Security. So most people, though, are somewhere around that smaller range there. So 1,000 to 1,999. We're in those smaller ranges there. Most of us have not saved up enough for retirement. So our adjustment to retirement, really good adjustment if we're physically healthy, we feel good, we wanted to retire. It's a lot harder on us to retire if we don't want to, we're forced out, or we're unhealthy. So our friends and our family in late life, what older adults have, well, we all kind of have this, but with older adults, the idea is they have a social convoy, so the group of supportive people that journey along with us. So our close friends, our family members, our service providers, like our mail carrier. My dad's a mail carrier. You'd be shocked by how many people love their mail carrier and who treat them like family. Sometimes, he gets more holiday gifts than I've seen in any other career. People love their mail carrier. So it's this social convoy. Late life friendship is often really valuable for our older adults. So they often prefer those friends they've had for a long time. They rely on their friends for independence to help them get around and do activities. Women often have more friends with increased intimacy. So for an older man, sometimes he can be more at risk for isolation because those friendships that he's built over the years are often not as numerous and often less intimacy. So if a man is widowed, it can be really, really difficult. Siblings are our longest running friends, so we know them, the longest out of our lives there. But parental favoritism, even when the parents have died, this can still lead to problems. So if you're 75 fighting with your 80-year-old sister, mom always loved you more, well, mom's been gone for 30 years, but they're still fighting. So this can still be an issue there. So an interesting thing about our selection of who we want to hang out with across the lifespan is this idea of socio-emotional selectivity theory, or SST, so developmental psychologists say. With this, it's just saying that our needs for hanging out with people shift across the lifespan. So in adolescence, we really want to hang out with those people who can teach us something new. So an interesting author who's written a new book, or a new friend that we think is really cool. And our emotion needs are fewer. So we really don't want to see our grandma or our aunties too much. They meet those emotion needs, but hey, I want to go to that new book signing. This shifts, though, in old age. So they're less likely to want to go see somebody they've never met or learn something new, more likely to want to see those people who they know, they've been with, and that fulfill them emotionally, their friends, their family. The marriage, by this time we are out of that curve, so we're retiring, and many people say this is a great time in their marriage, the second honeymoon. The kids are grown, they're happy, they just get to hang out with their partner all day and garden or whatever it is they want to do. And so most marriages, if they last this long, they're pretty happy. Many older adults really report good marital satisfaction. So this can be really difficult then when spousal caregiving or widow, becoming a widow is in place. So spousal caregiving is really stressful. Many times research suggests it's more stressful and rewarding than caring for a parent because you're used to seeing this person on a eye-to-eye level, journeying with them through life. But if you had a really good marriage before, it can buffer some of that stress. Partner's death often is really a traumatic experience for many people. It can be a risk factor as well for one's own mortality. So your partner dying can be more likely to actually have you pass on as well. So it's a really high stressor. Women are more likely to be widowed. Men recover more slowly, though, often because they don't have as many friends and other societal partners to continue journeying with. Great-grandparenthood, though, so this is an exciting time. Many people are becoming great-grandparents, and so living longer lives, we're more likely to be alive to see these great-grandparenthood come about, so especially women, because they live longer lives. And there's a lot of important things that great-grandparents say they get out of this relationship. So they say it's family renewal, major milestone of longevity. Major milestone of longevity. So just say, wow, I've lived long enough to have all of these generations on this earth, and that can be an amazing thing. And that leads us up and through, so we have finished. I know it's a bit longer of a lecture there, but that covers older adulthood. I will meet you back here and we'll discuss some death, dying, and bereavement in our last chapter of the book. Bye.